One of, if not the most anticipated releases on the Microsoft calendar dropped over this past weekend. And yeah, the Doom the Dark Ages debuted to, well, an interesting reception, if we're going to be completely honest, okay? Because in the lead up to this, with all of the marketing, which, in recent years, Xbox and Microsoft hasn't exactly been that good when it comes to pushing their first party titles, but in this case, they've really gone above and beyond. There have been a few trailers that have come out for this title, and honestly, they looked pretty good, mostly because it's like, hey, you like all of that Doom gameplay from 2016 and then from Eternal in 2020? Well, it's more of that, and it's also got, kind of melee aesthetic. It's got the chainsaw shield, and the Doom Slayer has a cape now, and it's like, okay, cool, and a bunch of other mechanics that are over the top of this. Hey, you seen that there was a big mech in Eternal, and you guys were bummed out that you couldn't play as that before? Well, now you can do it, and that's kind of an issue plaguing this game as well. But yeah, no, there was a lot of reasons to be excited about this, mostly because, well, you took a look at what Bethesda was doing and what they dropped out recently, Oblivion Remastered notwithstanding, mostly because they didn't really work on that title. And yeah, as you can tell by some of the numbers that are up there on the screen right now, yeah, Oblivion Remaster completely and totally blows us out the water. But when it comes to previously announced games and previously announced titles, Doom the Dark Ages, this was going to be the big one, okay? Like, they have a lot of other things, like, yeah, you got your Fable reboot, and you've also got Perfect Dark, and Gears of War E-Day. I'm not entirely sure if there are concrete release dates for any of those titles, but yeah, Dark Ages, this was going to be the heavy hitter. But here's the thing, man, okay? I would imagine Microsoft and Bethesda probably had big aspirations for this title, okay? Because even going back to 2016, the original rebooted Doom, however you want to word that, Doom 4, New Doom, Doom 2016, that's the way that I hear everybody refer to it as, so that's the way that I'll do it. And you know what? When it first came out in 2016, like, that thing was phenomenal. From graphics to gameplay, like, that thing was a marvel on itself. And yeah, it's something that I played and I enjoyed quite a bit. It was at a point in time where I had just moved over to primarily playing on PC, and it was one of those games that really got me accustomed to WASD control, mouse and keyboard controls, and yeah, I liked it quite a bit. It's not a game that I finished, and I kind of got my fill of that type of arena FPS, boomer shooter, doomer shooter, however the hell you want to refer to it as. Yeah, it's like I played about half the game, I think, somewhere in and around that, and it's like, I'm good. Okay, maybe I'll come back to it at a later date. Spoiler, I haven't really. But I enjoyed what I did play. It was something that, yeah, if we could go ahead and expound upon it, or hell, even if you just got more of that, that'd be something that would definitely be welcome. Because as far as I know, and as far as I knew, 16 sold exceptionally well, which gave way to 2020's Doom Eternal, one of the last games to come out in the before times. And Eternal was very much more of the same. It just had additional mechanics that, yeah, audiences weren't necessarily all that receptive to. And that, unfortunately, carried on to Dark Ages, because when it comes to people, okay, talking about this game, it's very interesting. For as much as Microsoft has put their marketing prowess behind this title, it hasn't really hit. Like, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this. I've seen even fewer people stream it, and then the people that I would reliably consult their opinion on whether a game is worthy of my time or not, they were playing it, and, well, the farther they played in the game, the less favorable of a review that they had of it. In general, what I'm seeing out there is, yeah, people are playing it. Not that many, if you take a look at the numbers. Once again, it's just, it's not quite hitting like 16, or hell, not even really hitting like Eternal, because you take a look at this, and as Grums is pointing out, something is off with Doom the Dark Ages. I mean, yeah, this was on release. Like, what was the release date? I think, yeah, it came out on the 15th, so it ended up, yeah, it had a Thursday release, something goofy like that. But yeah, okay, cool, yeah. So it dropped on the first day, opening day, 30,000, and then it ended up peaking over this past weekend with 31. So that's not great. And you compare and contrast that with Doom Eternal dropping spring of 2020, and it tops out at 104, just about 105,000 concurrent players. And, well, Grums does point out, okay, by contrast, yeah, Doom Eternal had 104,000 peak compared to the 30 that Dark Ages did. We'll have to wait for the weekend numbers. Then we got them. They ain't great. There's not that much, 600 additional players. Could be that many, like me, have switched to Game Pass. But here's the thing, man, okay? Like, recently doing a video about the stagnation of these subscription services in general. The last time that Xbox, Microsoft came forward with the amount of subscribers, that's 34 million Xbox Game Pass subscribers worldwide. Do you think all of them tuned in for Doom? Not entirely sure on that one, but even still, okay, you take a look on your biggest platform, your biggest non-first party platform. Right, okay. Because yes, you could go over, you could buy the full version over there on Xbox, you could get it on PS5 as well. It's a multi-platform release, and mostly because everybody's looking at Game Pass and the fact that that is really costing a bunch of sales, releasing Dark Ages on PS5. It's probably a good move. Don't know how many copies it would have sold over there. Or yeah, you could also get the upsale on Game Pass, because they'll give you the standard edition, but then they'll constantly prompt you, hey, you could go out there, you could get the special edition with a couple more DLC. You probably get a skin and a gun. I don't know. That's normally how shit works in today's day and age. So yeah, you can go ahead and do that. Just constantly pumping that out to the 34 million people that I'm sure all checked out Dark Ages this past weekend. So that 31,000 concurrent players, hey man, that's not anywhere representative of the full scope, okay, of the actual player base that's out there. But we keep on hearing shit like this time and time and time again with all of these games that have truly underperforming debuts on Steam. Oh yeah, but you also aren't factoring in, like, okay, Assassin's Creed Shadows has 3 million players. Most of them are out there playing on Ubisoft Connect, okay? Steam is but a fraction. And then you end up getting the sales data and realizing that, oh yeah, a fraction of the people are actually checking it out on the free servers, or the subscription servers rather. The game is in there and you're paying for it anyway, so free is kind of an ideal, and it's more of a guideline really. But still, when the numbers eventually do come to the forefront, you realize that yeah, the people who aren't playing it on Ubisoft Connect also aren't buying it on Steam or Xbox or PS5 or Avowed. Okay, Avowed, a more apples to apples comparison with what you have with Doom the Dark Ages here, a game that, yeah, you could go out there, you could buy it on Steam, you could buy it on PS5, you could buy it on Xbox. It's another in that ZeniMax Bethesda ecosystem, okay? Arcane Studios, it's bundled in with all of that stuff. So, yeah, just like Doom the Dark Ages, coming from id Software, which is packaged in that same corporate umbrella, and it doing similar numbers. Funny how we didn't get any sales data eventually come out with that one, but here's the thing. People were generally put off a lot by the statements of, I forget that Matt character, the lead artist on that one. He kind of poisoned the well on that game, but the people who did play it thought that, yeah, it's fine. Some of the mechanics are all right, but overall, it's like it's not a game that I'm going to remember by the end of the year, and that's kind of what's going on with Doom this time around. It's really more of the same, and this is from Rolling Stone. Not exactly an outlet that I would ever lend any sort of credence towards, but as it is put by the headline, and a lot of people have made videos on this, a lot of responses have been made, but Doom the Dark Ages feels like an Xbox 360 shooter. Oh, you could only dream of that, in a bad way. Generic in visual and tone, Bethesda's medieval prequel slows down the action and confusingly strips the game of everything that makes modern Doom great. And this came out March 31st. Okay, so this was when early previews were coming out, and honestly, from what I'm hearing about the people that are playing later into this game, there's an open world section, there's that, mech combat that's a lot slower than regular Doom, but yeah, you can find some of those trick movement videos where, you're just jumping and moving, and it's very arena shooter, it's very 2016 Doom, which you probably remember and really love about the game, okay? You rip and tear, go out there and kill a bunch of demons, kill a lot of you cyber demons, and what the other ones, the annoying ones from Eternal that nobody liked. But I mean, from some of the gameplay that I did watch, it's like, for once in their entire existence, Rolling Stone's not wrong by saying generic visuals. It's like, outside of it looking a little bit better, I would imagine if you put it on ultra performance and if you had 4K upscaled textures for either 16 or Eternal, you might not be able to really tell it apart other than the UI. But yeah, if you just strip all of that stuff out, doesn't really look like it's that much of an upgrade. But here's the thing, man. Okay, and here's basically what I'm going to surmise this as, because you take a look at the response on Metacritic, and it's really coming down to this, all right? Because you could go ahead and dismiss Avowed for being a failure for the very obvious reasons of, yeah, okay, it looking like, very much a Zoomer and millennial influenced poisoning of the action RPG. Well, you could go ahead and dismiss that with that. Okay, Assassin's Creed Shadows, do we even really need to give a qualification as to why that was a colossal failure? No, exactly. But how do you square the circle of Doom obviously underperforming, right? Because you take a look at the responses, right? Because you got the critic reaction, 85, generally favorable user report on 8.0 on Metacritic. Okay, you can go to your different platforms if you're so inclined, but Metacritic, pretty reasonable response to things, but you only have 476 user ratings. That's where I'm immediately starting to wonder. Okay, because the critic scores, yeah, they all look the same. 25 people played it on Xbox, which is interesting. 65 on PC and 57 on PS5. Yeah, all very interesting. It seems like not a lot of people are playing the game. And the only way that we can go ahead and quantify how many people are playing it is backing up that assertion that nobody's willing to give the game a chance. From what you're hearing, it's more of the same, and maybe some of the new mechanics aren't quite hitting the same way that they did back in the cut. So it's more the experimentation of Eternal, which for some people is a big turnoff. And here's the thing, man. This is a full-ass priced game. $70 for you to try out something that you might not be that excited about. And this is where I think we're going to be heading for a big problem, because we knew earlier, what was it, at the beginning of this month or at the end of last month, Microsoft came out and said, yeah, by holiday time, we're going to be bumping our prices up. $80, $100, that is very much in our future. With all the hardware stuff immediately going up at time of announcement. People aren't willing to part with their cash. They aren't even willing to sign up for your desperate subscription services to try out a game anymore. You are price walling and pricing out your consumers who would otherwise be willing to take a flyer on your game, because you take a look at the biggest games this year, one of which was at least published by Bethesda in the form of Oblivion, and it ended up cranking 200 and some odd thousand concurrent players on Steam, but you could also get it included with your subscription to Game Pass. Interesting that. And then what about Claire Obscure Expedition 33? Yeah, it being an overwhelming critical and commercial success, and it also having a 6-digit concurrent player count. And oh yeah, what was that again? All right, you could also get that on Game Pass. Funny how all that shit ends up working out, but no, Doom the Dark Ages only ends up getting 31,000 concurrent players on Steam. Something tells me that this desperate reaction from the AAA space, thinking that they can go ahead and charge you just a little bit more, thinking that, you could just laugh at the poors that don't want to pay the extra prices, but when the rubber hits the road and when you are forced to part with your hard-earned cash, you're making more informed and selective choices. So a game that you are hearing either not much about or a middling response to, you're not willing to take a flyer on. And this is something that I talked about months ago at this point in time. When these greedy gaming companies start raising the prices, sure, over at Nintendo, you think you're going to get thousands of hours out of Mario Kart World. That is something that you would willingly pay for. That's fantastic. You want to go ahead and cheer on those $80 price tags? So be it. But the next time Nintendo introduces a new IP that you aren't entirely sure about and it comes out at full $80 price, are you willing to go and take a gamble on something that is just about $100? Are you willing to pay for more of the same for a third Doom game, even if you haven't finished 16 or Eternal? Or are you going to wait for it to go down in price? Are you going to wait for it for those developers who worked hard on this game? Are you waiting for them to miss their bonuses, miss their incentives because they got priced out of many players' hands? That's a reality we're going to have to reckon with. I'm sure it's a big hit on Game Pass. I'm sure Microsoft and Xbox will come out and say that it's the number one performing game during this certain time demographic, and everything is all fine and copacetic. But every single time we see big releases like this come out and underperform, when there's enough time given, we start to get the sales data and realize that, oh shit, nobody's wanting to actually buy these games at this steep price point. But hey, keep gouging your customers, and I'm sure there's enough bootlickers out there to make it look worthwhile on social media. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.